Intro music fades in and out. Narrator. Imagine a bustling English settlement, nestled on the wild shores of a new continent. A beacon of hope and ambition. Families, artisans, soldiers, all striving to carve a new life from the wilderness. Then, a governor departs for crucial supplies, promising a swift return. But when he finally makes it back, 3 years later, what he finds is not a thriving community, but an eerie, desolate silence. Every soul, every building, every trace of life, simply vanished. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the haunting tale of the lost colony of Roanoke. For over 4 centuries, the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists has remained one of history's most enduring and perplexing mysteries. It's a story steeped in ambition, conflict, and the brutal realities of early colonial ventures. A chilling reminder of the unknown perils that lurked in the New World. Tonight, we journey back to the late 16th century, to a time of empires clashing and new horizons beckoning. To unpick the threads of this captivating enigma, our story begins not on American soil, but in the court of Queen Elizabeth I, a monarch whose reign was defined by exploration, Protestant fervor, and a fierce rivalry with Catholic Spain. England, then a burgeoning maritime power, yearned for its own foothold in the Americas, a base from which to challenge Spanish dominance, discover new riches, and spread the Protestant faith. Into this ambitious landscape stepped Sir Walter Raleigh, a dashing courtier, soldier, and favorite of the Queen. In 1584, Raleigh secured a royal patent, granting him the right to establish a colony in the vast, uncharted territory of North America, a land he named Virginia, in honor of the Virgin Queen. Raleigh, though never setting foot in the colony himself, was the driving force behind the initial expeditions. He understood the immense logistical and financial challenges. Yet his vision was clear: to establish a permanent English presence that would serve as a privateering base and a source of raw materials. His first exploratory voyage, in April 1584, was led by Captains Philip Amadas and Arthur Barlow. They reached the outer banks of present-day North Carolina in July, discovering a land described as fertile, abundant, and teeming with wildlife. Their reports were overwhelmingly positive, painting a picture of an earthly paradise. Crucially, they established contact with the local Algonquian-speaking Native Americans, specifically the CROATOAN and CROATOAN tribes. Among them were 2 key figures: Manteo, a friendly chieftain of the CROATOAN, and Wanchese, a more wary warrior from the CROATOAN. Amadas and Barlow returned to England in September, bringing Manteo and Wanchese with them, showcasing them as living proof of the New World's potential. These initial encounters were marked by curiosity and, initially, a degree of mutual respect, laying the groundwork for what Raleigh hoped would be a harmonious settlement. Encouraged by these glowing reports, Raleigh dispatched a larger expedition in April 1585, comprising 7 ships and approximately 600 men. This venture was led by his cousin, Sir Richard Grenville, with Ralph Lane serving as the governor of the fledgling colony. Their primary objective was to establish a military outpost, explore the region, and search for valuable resources. They landed on Roanoke Island in August 1585, constructing a fort and a small settlement, the remnants of which are still visible today at Fort Raleigh National Historic Site. However, this first attempt at colonization was plagued by a series of misfortunes and miscalculations. From the outset, relations with the Native Americans began to sour. The English colonists, accustomed to European customs and hierarchies, struggled to understand the complex social structures and territorial rights of the indigenous peoples. Their demands for food and resources, often taken without negotiation, quickly bred resentment. A particularly egregious incident occurred when a silver cup was stolen from the English. In retaliation, Grenville ordered the burning of a Native American village, a brutal act that irrevocably poisoned relations with the powerful Second chief, Wingina, who had initially been welcoming. As winter set in, the colonists faced severe food shortages and increasing hostility from the surrounding tribes. Lane, a military man, proved ill-suited to diplomacy, and his leadership exacerbated tensions. By the spring of 1586, the situation was dire. The colonists were isolated, under constant threat, and on the brink of starvation. Providentially, in June 1586, Sir Francis Drake, fresh from raiding Spanish settlements in the Caribbean, arrived off the coast of Roanoke. He offered the struggling colonists passage back to England, an offer they eagerly accepted. Thus, this first attempt at an English colony in the New World ended in failure, a harsh lesson in the realities of frontier life. It was a failure that highlighted the critical need for better planning, more sustainable supplies, and, crucially, a more diplomatic approach to the indigenous inhabitants. Undeterred by this setback, Sir Walter Raleigh planned a third expedition, but this time with a profoundly different vision. Instead of a military outpost, he envisioned a self-sustaining agricultural colony, populated by families, farmers, and artisans. This was to be the City of Raleigh, intended to be established not on Roanoke Island, but further north, in the Chesapeake Bay area. In May 1587, 117 colonists, including women and children, set sail from Plymouth, England, under the governorship of John White, an accomplished artist and cartographer who had been part of the 1585 expedition. White was also the grandfather of one of the colonists, Eleanor Dare, who was pregnant at the time. The voyage was arduous, and upon reaching the Outer Banks in July 1587, they encountered an unexpected obstacle. Their pilot, a man named Simon Fernandez, allegedly refused to take them further north to the Chesapeake Bay, insisting they disembark on Roanoke Island. The reasons for this remain debated, perhaps a desire to return to privateering quickly, or simply a miscalculation. Regardless, the colonists were left on the site of the previous failed settlement. They found the remnants of the old fort and evidence that some of the previous garrison, left behind by Drake, had been killed. This was an ominous start. Despite the setbacks, the colonists began to rebuild. They repaired the old houses and started to plant crops. On the 18th of August 1587, a truly historic event occurred. Eleanor Dare gave birth to a daughter, Virginia Dare, who became the first English child born in the Americas. This was a moment of immense hope, a symbol of the colony's potential for permanence. However, the goodwill with the Native Americans had not improved. One Cheese, who had returned from England with a deep suspicion of the English, rallied hostile tribes. Attacks on the colonists became frequent, culminating in the murder of one of White's assistants, George Howe, whilst crabbing alone. The colonists, now deeply concerned for their safety and facing dwindling supplies, pleaded with Governor White to return to England for reinforcements and provisions. Reluctantly, and with a heavy heart, White agreed, leaving his daughter, granddaughter, and the entire colony behind? He promised to return as quickly as possible, taking with him the hopes and fears of the nascent settlement. White departed Roanoke Island in August 1587, expecting to be back within a few months. However, fate, in the form of geopolitical strife, intervened dramatically. Upon his arrival in England in late 1587, he found the nation gripped by a monumental crisis. Spain, under King Philip II, was preparing its formidable armada for an invasion of England. Every available ship, every sailor, and every resource was being mobilized for the defense of the realm. Raleigh, Grenville, and even White himself were caught up in the war effort. White's pleas for a relief expedition were repeatedly denied. No ships could be spared for a distant colony whilst England itself faced existential threat. The Spanish Armada was finally defeated in August 1588. A pivotal moment in English history. But even after this triumph, the war with Spain continued, and the seas remained dangerous. It wasn't until March 1590, nearly 3 years after his departure, that John White finally managed to secure passage on a privateering expedition bound for the Caribbean, with a promise that they would stop at Roanoke. His return journey was excruciatingly slow, plagued by storms and further delays due to privateering activities. When White's ship, the Hopewell, finally reached Roanoke Island on the 18th of August 1590, Virginia Dare's third birthday, the scene that greeted him was one of profound desolation. The settlement was deserted. The houses had been dismantled, and a defensive palisade had been erected around the former site. There were no signs of the colonists, no smoke, no human sounds. The most chilling discovery was a single word: CROATOAN, carved into a wooden post of the palisade. On a nearby tree, the letters CRO were deeply carved. Before White's departure in 1587, he had instructed the colonists that if they were to move, they should carve the name of their new location into a tree or post. Crucially, if they were in distress, they were to carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross. This single word, CROATOAN, offered the only clue to their fate, pointing towards CROATOAN Island, the ancestral home of Manteo's friendly tribe, located approximately 50 miles south of Roanoke. White and his crew attempted to sail to CROATOAN Island, but a fierce storm arose, driving their ships out to sea and forcing them to abandon the search. With dwindling supplies and damaged ships, the privateers refused to continue, and White was compelled to return to England, never again to see his daughter or granddaughter. The lost colony of Roanoke had truly vanished, leaving behind a legacy of unanswered questions and tantalizing clues. Over the centuries, numerous theories have emerged to explain the disappearance of the Roanoke colonists, each with varying degrees of historical and archaeological support. The most widely accepted theory, and one suggested by the CROATOAN carving, is that the colonists assimilated with friendly Native American tribes, most likely the CROATOAN or perhaps other Algonquian groups. This theory is supported by later accounts from English explorers and settlers, who reported encountering fair-skinned, blue-eyed individuals among the Native American tribes of North Carolina, speaking English and possessing European artifacts. Indeed, the Lumbee tribe of North Carolina, whose oral traditions speak of ancestral connections to the Roanoke settlers, may be direct descendants of this assimilation. Manteo, the loyal CROATOAN chief, would have been a natural ally, offering refuge and integration into his community. Another prominent theory suggests that the colonists attempted to relocate to their originally intended destination, the Chesapeake Bay area, or perhaps to the mainland near the Chowan River. Archaeological digs at what historians refer to as Site X and Site Y locations on the mainland of North Carolina that align with features depicted on John White's maps have yielded tantalizing evidence of early English presence, including 16th-century pottery and tools, suggesting that some colonists may indeed have moved inland. The CRO carving on the tree might have been an abbreviation, indicating a move, but perhaps the full message was never completed or found. Less plausible, but still considered, are theories of a violent end. Hostile Native American tribes, perhaps led by Wanchese, could have massacred the colonists. However, no mass graves or significant battle sites have ever been discovered to support this. Disease or starvation are also possibilities. But the organized dismantling of the settlement and the lack of distress signals suggest a planned departure rather than a catastrophic collapse. The absence of a Maltese cross was a crucial detail, indicating they were not in immediate distress when they left. The enduring mystery of Roanoke has left an indelible mark on American history and culture. It served as a stark warning to future colonial ventures, highlighting the immense challenges and the importance of self-sufficiency and good relations with indigenous peoples. For John White, the personal tragedy of losing his family in the New World haunted him until his death, a poignant testament to the human cost of these grand imperial ambitions. The story of Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, who vanished into the unknown, became a powerful symbol of the promise and peril of the American frontier. Conclusion. Music fades in. The lost colony of Roanoke remains a captivating enigma, a blank page in the early chapters of English colonization. Whilst we may never uncover the definitive truth of what happened to those 117 souls, their story continues to fascinate, reminding us of the fragility of human endeavor, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring power of the unknown. It is a tale that speaks of the clash of cultures, the lure of new lands, and the profound silence that can swallow an entire community, leaving behind only a single, cryptic word, CROATOAN. And in that silence, history continues to whisper, inviting us to imagine, to speculate, and to forever wonder about the fate of the lost colony. Outro music fades out.